Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you all are. I'm sure you are working at hopefully at the comfort of your homes or probably in the office, but practicing some good social or physical distancing. Thank you for joining Talent View's webinar Wednesday. And today we really have an exciting topic for everyone: how to build a collaborative culture using Workplace from Facebook. So I'll jump right into it. And again, welcome to everyone joining us either here on Zoom or Facebook Live. So thanks again. And just to give everyone an overview of your Zoom tabs first, right? So you're seeing everything on screen, just letting you know that if you don't like the sizing, there is an opportunity for you to resize your screens. So you can just extend your screen to get a better view of the speaker video and presentation slides. You'll also notice at the bottom of your screens, there's a Q&A button. Please don't hesitate to ask questions anytime. And throughout this webinar, for the next probably 60 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to try and endeavor to answer as much questions as we can throughout this entire session. All right, so giving you advice as well that everything we're sharing now, you'll get a copy of. So we will be emailing you in the next 24 hours a copy of this webinar recording. We will also share with you the presentation slides and probably throughout our conversation, any additional resources that may be beneficial to you because of this topic that we're covering today. All right, so agenda is straightforward. We've got three specific things to talk about today. The first one is I'd like to share a bit about our experience, the framework that we've built at Talent View on how to drive cultural transformation amidst our current situation, amidst the pandemic that the whole world is going through. How to build a connected workforce with Workplace. So Workplace, which Lawrence Villanueva, who's sharing this webinar with me or joining me on this webinar, will share more in detail. We'll be able to share with you how to connect people even if we're really working apart. So staying together even if we're apart, that's going to be answered in this webinar. And how do you empower your people with Workplace? So this is our 3-point agenda. Allow me to first introduce myself. Again, my name is Ange Vera. I'm the CEO of Talent View. So what we do is that we help organizations build stronger employer brands, and we have worked with more than 200 organizations across the ASEAN region. I have 15 years doing HR work across talent acquisition, OD, HR tech, comp, and ben. So I've really gone the rounds of HR. I've also graduated with a degree in employer brand leadership from the Employer Branding College in Australia with honors and distinctions. And I've written a book specifically for our talent acquisition professionals called Rethink Recruitment, which talks about the new practices and new actions of talent attraction and talent acquisition today. So again, thank you for joining us. And just a quick introduction on Talent View. So I talked earlier about Talent View having a focus on employer branding. We do three things quite well. The very first is employer brand strategy. So if you're a company that wants to manage your perception in the market, if you're a company that wants to lay out a solid communication plan to speak with your employees, speak with your candidates, we can help you build that. The second is design. So if you'd like to amp up the way that you're communicating to your internal and external audience, we can help you through videos, through posts, through managing your social media. And the third piece is technology. We are partnered with the best technologies in the world, one of which is Workplace from Facebook or by Facebook. And we'll be diving deeper on this particular technology for today's session. All right. So these are just some of the organizations we work with across the region. Some of the logos might be familiar to you. And we're just happy to share our experience today and hope that it helps a lot of other organizations in this time that we're going through. All right, so let's get some audience participation going. I'd like to start with the first poll and just ask everyone a simple question. What is your current involvement in your organization's collaboration and culture building efforts? So I'll give everyone a few seconds to answer. So those that are in HR leadership or maybe you're in employee engagement, please let us know your particular role. All right. And for those that are just enjoying their morning, please join me in having coffee. In Manila, it's, well, heading to lunch actually. So let's see the results. Let's see the results from everyone on that quick poll. All right, so about 38% of us, at least those that are in Zoom, that are able to answer the polls, are in HR leadership. And then we also have those who are involved in employee engagement, planning and coordination, and who are functional leaders. And then there's about 13% who are in brand comms, and about 13% again who are in other roles. So let's go to our next poll, a more serious one. Now that we know the mix of people in the virtual room, just wanted to ask everyone again, what platforms are you using to collaborate with your employees right now? All right, so I'll give you a few seconds. Please check all that apply. All right, let's get those answers in and let's take a look at the results. Okay, wow. Email still wins for this virtual room. 90% are using email to communicate. And for Manila, at least, that's 5 months that we've been in a community quarantine of some sort. How's email so far? I hear stories of people sending out an email to 15 others and getting replies of okay noted 15 times. So I hope that's something that we're managing. 80%, this is a solid number coming up, messenger apps. So whether these are formal or informal communication channels in your team, what we're finding is most people, because this is what we use in our personal life, this is what everyone's using. So we're just gonna jump quickly on Viber or WhatsApp and try to get a response as quickly as possible from our team members. And then of course, just like us, everyone's using Zoom, so 70%. So it's really interesting to see this mix of 70, 80, 90. Before, when we were talking about these channels, we would see half the people using messenger apps, half the people using Zoom, and still more people using email. But now we're getting a more even mix across these three collaboration platforms. All right, so we'll move on to our topic and jump straight into this first item on the agenda. How do you drive cultural transformation amidst our current situation? So at Talent View, what we did at the start of this entire lockdown, I believe 5 months ago, was we really spoke to companies, customers, leaders in different organizations, different industries, and tried to understand where everyone was moving toward, particularly on the infrastructure side, on the people side. And we developed this framework that we call the extended workplace design. And I wanted to touch very quickly on the 6 pillars of this extended workplace design. So the first one being enhanced leadership communication. So as you know, everyone is working remotely, or if in the office, very few, but everyone's working remotely and information is changing rapidly. And what we're finding is that people have actually extended the workplace to their homes. So as companies, we have no choice but to work with whatever platforms, devices, infrastructure that our team members have in their homes. Whether you have bandwidth issues during the day, some apps aren't working, these are all part of the daily challenge. But one thing is for certain, one thing that we're seeing successful organizations have is that their leaders are at the forefront of communication. For you to succeed in an extended workplace or a remote working environment, a work from home environment, you have to get your leaders involved. Not just involved, but really leading the charge in sharing communications. What's going to happen to the business? What are the changes we're going to do as a team? How are we responding to this crisis? How are we helping our communities? It's so important for leaders to establish the communication early on. So this is something that we need to check off and make sure that our managers, supervisors, leaders have the tools they need to get communication out there to every person. So it shouldn't be, at this point, shouldn't really be a cascade. It shouldn't be leaders pass on the message to managers, managers pass it on to supervisors, supervisors pass it on to their team. because information's changing so fast. We definitely want to try to eliminate the time that it takes for information to travel and get leaders to speak directly to each and every member. So that's the first piece. The second piece is resilient implementation. So it used to be called new normal. Now we're saying it's the now normal. This is what it is, not just for the past 5 months, but most likely for the next 5 months or more. So when we say resilient implementation, whatever you're doing as a strategy for your business, it should withstand the devices that your people are using in their homes, the bandwidth that they currently have. And I think that's why messenger apps are becoming more popular, because maybe the intranet is not working, or maybe the server of the company isn't working. But we sort of know that the messenger apps, whether that's Facebook Messenger, Viber, WhatsApp, that's somehow reliable and we can reach our team members there. So when you're talking of an extended workplace, it's so important to make that adjustment for your team, to make sure that whatever platforms you're using can run on their devices and they can naturally work with it to serve our customers, right? That's the second piece. The third pillar, culture and collaboration mindset. So I'm speaking to all HR leaders in our virtual room, and I wanted to say that although hope is important and we all will really need hope during this time, hope is not a strategy. So in other words, we cannot just say, hopefully things go back to normal, and when they do, we're going to be ready for that. Or hopefully things go back to maybe 80% of what it was, and we'll be ready for that. We have to plan for the now normal. And we need to think of how do we bring culture and collaboration to a digital world. It's what we call forced digital disruption. Even if we weren't ready, even if our systems, our processes were not yet in place, we had to do it. We have to do it even at this point, right? So when you're celebrating birthdays, celebrating milestones, how are you doing that now today? We've seen companies react very, very differently across a spectrum, but the ones that are succeeding are trying and trying, failing, trying, and just failing fast and learning from everything that they're doing. So example would be maybe a TikTok challenge. There are companies where they know their team members would enjoy something like that. So they roll that out on their digital collaboration platform. Or maybe they're doing a bingo challenge, or they're celebrating a milestone, somebody achieving performance awards, or somebody closing a big client. You definitely want to continue building that culture intentionally as you are in this situation. So that's the third pillar. The fourth is reliable and secure connectivity. So this one, we know in certain countries, especially in our region, there's a big challenge there. But we have to think of our platforms, our technologies, our systems, and make sure that they can run on the connection or bandwidth that we have today. So make sure that the data you're sharing, especially if you're sharing confidential data, are still secure. I guess that's the biggest problem that we're finding with messenger apps. That's why people are still on email. Because if they're sending a contract, they're sending confidential documents, you can't send it over an unsecure network. So something that allows you to solve this, something that allows you to be more reliable and have more secure data sharing will definitely be helpful to your team and something to check off as you establish the now normal for you. The fifth one is optimized integration. So how are you serving both your external customers and your internal customers? So think about as simple as filing leaves. Before, employees have to file 3 physical forms, one for themselves, one for their manager, and one for the HR file. Now that everything's digital, now that we're in a forced digital disruption mode, how are you doing that? Are we still insisting on our current processes? Or are we transforming our processes to blend with the current situation that we have? So when you're integrating platforms, when you're integrating technologies, think about the convenience that it's going to bring to your internal team members and also to your customers. How easy is it for a customer to close a deal with you or to get your services, to get your solutions? It must be as seamless as possible. It must be optimized for us to serve our internal and external customers the best way we possibly can. And the last, data-driven change. This is the last of the pillars and usually the last step because you need to first implement the first 5 pillars. And what I mean by this is now that we're on the 5th month of quarantine or community lockdowns, are you able to look at data and make decisions out of these data points? Are we able to say what's working, what's not working, how do we make adjustments? So moving forward, data is going to become very vital to the way that we operate. We can't just operate on pulse and see that, hey, our competitor's doing this. Let's do that as well. So for example, Zoom. I noticed that a lot of companies started getting into Zoom because of the quarantine. But if you look at it, and you look at it internally, in fact, they've had some tools that are similar to Zoom all along. They just never explored it, never had the time to look at it, or maybe, it wasn't so much of a need. So don't just jump into technologies because other people are using it, your competitors are using it, but use the data you have and use the data that you've gathered in order to make those decisions. So those are your 5 pillars. Wanted to share some statistics with you to support that. Companies and organizations that communicate effectively are 4.5 times more likely to retain the best employees. So we know this. We know that the more ways we collaborate with our team, the more ways we give them to communicate, avenues to express their thoughts, people are more likely to stay. And we want that during this day and age. It's hard to hire new talent, not know if they fit with the culture or not. So those that definitely are succeeding in our existing culture is something we want to support. So that's the first statistic. A second statistic, everyone's into cost cutting or cost efficiency. 70% of organizations report that the main cost cutting measure they're going to use or they plan to use is more effective use of technology. So for everyone in this virtual room, look at the technology platforms you're using. Look at what's effective, look at the overlaps, and try to see how you can manage budgets and manage costs by using a more optimized way of technology platforms or technology methodologies. All right, so these are the 6 pillars, and I wanted to run a quick poll before I turn over to our workplace discussion and ask everyone, out of the 6 pillars in the EWD framework, what do you think are your key strengths? So please check all that apply, and I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. All right. So is it leadership communication? Is it resilient implementation? Where are you good at this point? Let's take a look at the responses and the results. All right. Wow, this is so amazing. The data really is evolving. When we started this conversation before, the very first thing that companies secured was internet. But I guess now is, that's a given. You take a look at the top one, more than half of our room, 64% are saying we are good at resilient implementation. We've found a way to communicate with our team, to disseminate information, to serve our customers through their home, in their homes, whether they're working from home, working at the office, working remotely. So that's really great to hear. And I guess the data is showing you that you're not alone here, that there are companies like you who are also struggling with optimized integration, meaning reviewing the platforms you currently have and making sure that it's optimized, it's serving your customers well, it's serving your team members well. That's our biggest area of improvement as a collective group today. So I'm really happy also to see that everyone, or half the room, more than half the room, have put enhanced leadership communication as a key strength. So for the 45% that have not answered this, think about it. Who would you want to hear from today? Do you want to hear from different sources, good news, bad news, sometimes fake news? Or do you want to hear from your leaders to give you assurance about your roles, to give you assurance about the future of the company? So definitely leadership will always play a vital role, and the better we increase the visibility of our leaders, the more successful we will be in this extended workplace setup. All right. And for our HR folks, culture and collaboration mindset, 45% of the room have said that this is their strength. That is amazing to hear. So continue celebrating those milestones, continue acknowledging the people that are performing, and be a source of hope for the companies that are, connected to you, or your team members, or even your customers during this time. All right. So thank you everyone for answering that. And I'm now going to just turn over the floor to Lawrence Villanueva, who is Talent News, Talent Culture and Communications Lead. So that's quite a mouthful. And I believe Lawrence will first run a poll. You can see his screen now. And we'll talk more about how workplace can help, especially those who would like to optimize their current setup, to those that want to increase their collaboration and increase leadership visibility. So thank you guys. I'll see you in Q&A. Lawrence, over to you.
Thank you again, Ange, for sharing the extended workplace design. And I'm glad to see that we have some familiar attendees here joining us today. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the participants are now reassessing some of their existing practices. And as we've noted, it shows that security, along with data-driven change, are some of the key areas that we can improve on. My name is Lawrence Villanueva, and I've been working in the HR industry for more than 10 years already. So the first half has been spent working closely with recruiters and talent management leaders in making sure that they get the right people on board, and making sure as well that before they promote someone, they already have the right competencies in place to be successful in the role. And then the other half has been spent, and I think this is more exciting. This time I've been working closely with HR leaders and answering questions like why people join, why people stay, and why people leave their organization. And at the same time, we also help them with initiatives to turn their employees to become their brand ambassadors. And then most recently, as Ange have shared earlier, we've also partnered with Workplace, and this time it's really designed to advance our mission of helping employers get noticed and loved. So I'm going to jump right into the first question, which would be, how can you build a connected workforce with Workplace? Because we know how important this is, especially during this time that we're all working apart. So the culture and values that we stand for as an organization should be even strengthened. And we should see this as an opportunity to strengthen those two things. And now I'm going to share with you some of the trends that are shaping the future of work. So the very first thing would be mobile first. Everything that we do today is really centered around our mobile experience. So probably the first thing that you did today was to check your mobile phone and see how's your day or schedule going to be like for today. Or like many other Filipinos, it's essentially a device that you use to connect with loved ones here in the Philippines or probably abroad. So everything that we are doing now is centered around our mobile experience. And this is the reality that we've unconsciously embraced over the past few years. We also have millennials and Gen Zs taking over the workplace. And these generations have grown up using Facebook, Instagram, and Viber, just to name a few. So the way that we communicate with them should also be so much more expressive through videos, GIFs, and images. So a lot of the organizations that we work with has slowly realized that this is becoming the normal, at least for the demographics that they have in the business. And they would essentially create strategies that will allow them to implement platforms and applications that these generations will continue to love using. And then lastly, we also have what we call our shift in communications. Knowing that there's so much change and uncertainty, both in our personal and professional lives, the amount of information that we receive every day and the amount of information that we need to share out there has drastically grown up. I can imagine the role of HR leading the front and this side. So a lot of employees would normally like to share their ideas, their accomplishments for the day, so that their leaders could recognize their contribution to the organization. And more importantly, a lot of the employees are now sharing their voice against social issues. So coming from our study, it also shows that employees really appreciate it when they know that their leaders are listening closely to the things that matter to them the most. And then on top of these trends, COVID-19 has brought digital and physical distance across the globe. And workplace is here to close that gap because it has never been more important to make sure that we ensure that all of our employees feel connected, engaged, and informed over the next few months. So I'm going to share with you a very short video about workplace just to give everyone a background.
As your business evolves for the future, your teams and culture should change and grow with it. The key to achieving this is connection. At Facebook, we know a lot about connecting people. That's why we built Workplace, to connect the world of work and turn companies into communities. And just like Facebook and Messenger, Workplace is intuitive and simple to use. Workplace lets you connect directly with your employees, meaning you can always find and engage the right people at the right time. It also lets you broadcast live to your entire company to get real-time comments and reactions. Workplace isn't just about increasing engagement, it's about boosting culture too. Groups allow you to share ideas, celebrate contributions, and connect on projects with meaningful collaboration. They're a shared space where people and teams feel connected, informed, and supported. When every team, manager, or partner is connected, great things happen. Workplace gives you confidence that your teams are working together, solving problems and striving for success. With Knowledge Library, all your company and team's resources can sit in one place. Workplace seamlessly integrates with your existing tools and adapts with your organization. It gives you the control, security, and visibility your company needs. No matter what type of work you do, Workplace is designed for everyone, whether you're behind a desk or in front of customers. With 5 million paid users around the world, Workplace has connected companies in a big way. Just imagine what it could do for yours.
On top of this, the Facebook team has taken everything that they've learned over the past 10 years, coming from more than 2 billion users, and have applied that to the world of work. So the first question that we normally get is, can I use my Facebook account to log on to Workplace? So the quick answer to that is no. Workplace from Facebook is a totally separate and secured platform designed for enterprise application. Think of it as Facebook, but this time it's really designed for your business. It doesn't have any ads. So everything that you're going to be seeing on Workplace is connected with or related with the information that you need to consume related to work. Data ownership and security is one of the most important things that we've mentioned earlier, and I think it's an area that we need to improve on. So everything that you put on Workplace is essentially owned by your organization in comparison to Facebook, where everything that you post is essentially owned by the platform itself. We also have organizational-wide analytics, which is critical in terms of measuring engagement and making sure that you have visibility around the different groups within the business. And then it's also possible for you to implement bots, and it's really designed to make the lives of your employees easier. So think about it this way. If let's say you're a part of the learning and development team, you no longer need to follow up constantly through emails, for example, Viber or Messenger. But with bots on your Workplace, that's something that you can automate, and you can easily get the pulse of the organization and the questions that they need answered based on the learning programs that you have. And then in terms of the connection, I think this is the most critical part. Facebook, you'd normally be connected with your friends, relatives, or even your colleagues at some point. But with Workplace, all of the connections that you have would be inside the organization. So I'm going to switch my screen very quickly to share with you how Workplace is being used by different organizations to connect employees. And when we say employees, we mean all of the employees, even if you're in operations, who would normally be directly interacting with the customers, or the CEO of or the executive of the organization. So everything that I'm going to be sharing with you today is readily available as well on your mobile devices. So it's a mobile first platform, and it's something that has been designed to be used as well on your mobile phones. So what we're seeing here now is your newsfeed. And as you can see, it's very much familiar, knowing that everything has been taken from Facebook. So again, think of it as your Facebook platform, but this time it's really owned by your business. So your newsfeed is a place where you get informed around the things that are happening in your organization. You can easily customize your newsfeed depending on your role, who you report for, your location, and much more importantly, it intelligently adapts depending on the kind of groups that you normally interact with. So by this way, all of the information that you have on your newsfeed is really based on what's relevant for your role. And then I'm browsing through the left side of the screen. You also have your notifications. So your notifications is designed for you not to miss anything important in the business. And you can easily mark it as read or unread, depending on what you want to prioritize for the day. So what I'm going to do now is go to one of the most engaged groups here in Talent View. And in terms of our setup, we have 3 offices. We have an office here in the Philippines, in Malaysia, and Vietnam. So our Talent View Global Group is really a place designed to make sure that we onboard everyone, make sure that everyone feel connected. Number 2, it's a place for engagement. This is where we roll out our recognition programs, our passion hour, fitness Fridays, and even our random coffee sessions. And then lastly, it's also a place for HR information dissemination. So if there are any critical updates coming from HR, this is where we would normally post them to make sure that everyone in the organization is informed about our business direction. So I'm going to start first with our onboarding program. It's very simple, but I would say that it's really designed to make sure that employee from day one would feel connected. So here's Ram. She joined us last August 10, and we normally ask new employees about, random facts or fun facts, as we call it, about themselves. And what we're trying to do here is replicate the coffee conversations that we would normally have during our break time, or the corridor conversation that we're going to have when we pass on to our colleagues at work. So it's very effective knowing that employees could easily welcome new hires as well. And you can simply react, share a like, or welcome the new hire themselves through a simple comment. So by doing this, we're able to replicate some of the typical conversations that we would have in the office. And then during her first week, she was able to join a random coffee session as well with everyone in the organization. So you have Nick here from Malaysia, you have Hez who's working all the way in Sorsogon. And what we're trying to replicate here are the fun conversations that we would normally have back in the days where we're able to see each other face to face. And and it's really not a place for them to talk about necessarily all about work, but it's a place where we get to know people as not just professional but on a personal level. And then this particular group is also a place where we recognize and celebrate great performance. And as you can see, in our case, we normally review performance on a quarterly basis. So all of the accomplishments and milestones of the employees are recognized organizational wide. So this is something that you can easily replicate. And from our end, we have 5 employees who have reached their or who have exceeded their targets, even if we're all adjusting with what's happened during the pandemic. So in this case, it's so easy to socialize the content. I could just simply write, congrats, add a GIF to it so I no longer need to express how I feel inside. And instead of sending a lengthy email to everyone, it's now been replaced with this simple interaction that's happening on Workplace. And people could easily see. And as HR, part of the communications team, you no longer need to send out multiple emails, multiple messages through Viber or Messenger, knowing that it's all happening in one place. And then one of the features that I like the most as well on Workplace is that you have your search function. So if you want to search for a certain post related with policies and practices, for example, and this time we're now shifting the conversation to the information dissemination, then I can do that easily with Workplace as well. So what I'm going to do now is mark this post as important. And if I do that, I just simply select the number of days when it will appear to all of the feeds of our employees on Workplace. And if I hit confirm, it means that over the next 5 days, this particular post would appear to the news feed of all of the employees in the platform. So that's very powerful, knowing that you'll be able to see who among your employees have seen the post, and you'll also be able to ask questions coming from your employees. So it's all done publicly, and even your employees or the employees themselves could ask some of the questions coming from the employees of the organization. So we're building that ecosystem, building that sense of community across the organization. Then one last sample here would be it's also a place where we celebrate birthdays and milestones. Where we It's Sheila's birthday, and she's an employee from Vietnam. We'd normally see each other face to face when we visit Vietnam, but in this case, knowing that we're all working apart, a simple post, of course, would definitely be helpful in terms of making sure that we celebrate things together. And now I'm gonna go to a specific group, which is where we would normally get done, work get done. So we have our what we call our talent research and audit group, and it's so easy to create content so that we keep everyone in sync of the things that are needed to be accomplished. So what we have here is a post. As you can see, it's similar to as if you're posting something on Facebook. In our case, we tend to use Google Drive a lot. So through the post, you can easily share documents. And if, let's say, I accidentally shared an information that's not meant to be shared with everyone, it will easily respect the same provision that you have on your drive. So it can easily be integrated as well with OneDrive, Dropbox, or any other platforms that you're using internally. I could also run a quick poll to get the pulse of the organization. So if, let's say, I'd like to ask employees about the things that they would want answered during our next meeting, then a quick poll should make it work. And then next would be, if, let's say, we're talking about a certain project, I could run or create an action item post, and that will allow me to drive visibility in terms of ownership to the next steps that we have. So a sample that we have here would be the action items that we have collected coming from our previous meeting with different clients. And now I'm going to move to one of our groups, which is the Talent University group. So it's one of the key groups that we have created designed to encourage learning, even if everyone is out of the office. Because normally back then we'd conduct face-to-face trainings, but now we needed to migrate everything in the digital space. So this is a place or a group specifically designed for learning. And as you can see, what we did here is to align our values, which is leadership in people, excellence in achieving goals, agility in providing top-notch customer service, and discipline in practicing professionalism and integrity. So what we did here is to align our values with the learning and development goals of the people inside TalentView. And it's so much more easier for them to select the kind of courses that they would like to push forward with. In our case, we have two separate tracks. Management track is really designed for experienced hires or experienced roles. And these are some of the courses that they can complete. Shape your team up until evolving with the customer. And then you also have your technical track. And this time it's really designed for people who are team members, project owner, and technical experts. And what we're trying to do here is to move things from the face-to-face or the traditional way of conducting trainings onto workplace so that everyone would be involved in the learning process. And we normally celebrate milestones as well. As you can see, we have here our leaderboard based on the monthly monitoring of the team. And people from Vietnam are firing on all directions. They're really leading on the front in terms of accomplishing the learning and development program that we have at TalentView University. And it's followed by Vanessa and Rain with 50 points respectively. So we're socializing the content and we're driving ownership and inspiring others to do the same. So imagine how easy it is now to drive learning, to reward and recognize employees, and even to onboard talents in the organization. And that's what we're trying to do to connect all of our employees here in workplace. And then I would say that what's beautiful about it as well is you have the capability to manage insights in the organization. So you'll be able to see insights based on the number of employees that you have. You'll also be able to see who are the active employees. In terms of content, you have visibility around the kind of conversations that are happening on workplace. You'll be able to see as well who are the top contributors in the business. So we have Lee from HR, Lawrence, myself running on the second place. And these are the kind of things that leaders would normally ask about. Who among our employees are mostly engaged? Who among our employees are driving conversations and making collaboration work in the platform? And then if you'd also like to check the visibility of certain posts, then that's something that you can easily do on Workplace as well. So in this case, if I will check one of our programs, I would be able to see how effective the content is and if it's something that I would be replicating over the next few months. And if I would like to see the post itself, then that's something that I can do here on Workplace as well. So it's just loading, please bear with me. But one of the most engaging posts that we have is really derived by this question. So I'm not gonna go through it one by one, but we're seeing that this kind of content brings everyone together. And what we love about it is that all of the conversations that we have here doesn't necessarily mean that it's all related to work, but it's also a place where we can have fun and build that sense of community. Now, imagine yourself, or if in my case, I need to work with someone from our Kuala Lumpur office, all I need to do is search for this location using the titles here. And if let's say I need to collaborate with someone from marketing, then I already know that Salim would be the best person to connect with. So in this case, our organization is relatively small, but if let's say you have 100 employees, 1,000 employees, for example, or more than 1,000 employees, then it's going to be so much easier for you to see who within the organization you need to connect with to get work done. So I know for a fact that Salim is from marketing. I could easily start a call. I could also start a video call if I need to. And then if I'd like to see the reporting lines through the organizational chart, then that's something that I can also do on Workplace. So in this case, I know that Salim reports directly to Jolo and Jolo reports directly to Ange. So again, we're a relatively small organization, but think about it on a larger scale. You would be able to locate employees across the organization and know who to connect with depending on the project that you need to complete. And then most recently, we've also introduced workplace rooms, and it's essentially a place where you can start a video call and invite up to 50 employees or 50 external partners to join the conversation. So we know that this kind of transformation is important internally, but we also see the value of making all those conversations happen, even with your external partners. So through workplace rooms, you can easily share out the link to your external partners, and they could easily join the conversation, and you can easily create a multi-company group where they would be contributing to the projects that you have. So I'm going to share my screen back to the slides. So that's a very quick demo about Workplace. I hope it's helpful. And what we're seeing now is that in terms of adoption rates, we're seeing 80% adoption during the first 30 to 60 days. So here in the Philippines, we have more than 80 million Filipinos using the platform almost at an average of around 4 to 5 hours every day. So this number could probably be higher, but knowing that Workplace is used by more than 2 billion people across the globe, then there's no training required. And what you need to focus on would be building that culture, building that sense of connectedness, and making sure that there's a sense of community in your business, especially during this time. So I'm going to run a quick poll, and I just wanted to understand some of the existing practices that we have in terms of connecting employees and driving employee engagement. So it could be as simple as your virtual town halls. In our case, we also have what we call our game nights, fitness Fridays, employee recognition, interest groups like biking and hiking. You know, I would love to talk more about it, but we just covered the basic for today. Okay, so let's see the results. So we can see from here that virtual town halls shows to be the #1 priority, at least for everyone, along with employee recognition. So we're glad to see that. And then at the same time, we're seeing we have your interest groups, fitness, and game nights, virtual coffee drinking session. So the rule of the virtual coffee drinking session is relatively simple. We just simply select random employees to join the conversation and talk about everything unrelated to work. And it's really designed to capture the moments that we normally have during our coffee breaks. So you can easily do that. Make sure that you connect other employees with other departments, and it's easily designed to drive employee engagement. So I'm going to go now to the next part. So thank you for completing the quick poll. Next question would be, how can you empower your people using Workplace? And these are some of the impact that we're seeing coming from the most recent study of the Forrester Total Economic Impact Report. And this study has been completed over a span of 3 years, coming from local and global organizations who are using Workplace. So it shows here that we have experienced 25 reduction in leadership communication costs. So everything is in one place and leaders are easily involved in driving the conversations in the platform. You also have 34% reduction in time taken for frontline workers to get updates. In my next slide, I'll be sharing with you a story about Starbucks, and that would help justify why this number is so high. We also have 10% increase in employee retention. So if we're able to build that sense of community, if we're able to foster trust, build collaboration, then we're seeing that retention is also impacted with Workplace. And then lastly, you have 24% increase in onboarding efficiency. So knowing that everything is in one place, from your policies, forms, and training and videos, for example, it's now much more efficient to onboard new hires and make them feel connected and a part of the organization from day one. So here's another video coming from the leadership team of the different organizations using Workplace.
What I've now learned with internal communication, it's not about highly polished communication campaigns. It's really about the real life messiness that builds trust.
When you use Workplace as a platform for collaboration, you also have to look at what aspects of your culture you need to change, because Workplace is as good as what the leadership wants it to be and allows it to be for the company to be effective.
You can't be this ivory tower and expect people to galvanize around you if they don't understand your motivations and who you are as a human being and if it's authentic. And I think authenticity is really critical today in how you're perceived as a leader.
I think future leaders have to be listeners. If you are able to take the feedback, and even if it's angry feedback, and still make people feel like you're listening, I think that is what the future will have to be.
Give your team a voice. The reality is they're talking every single day anyway. Really giving them a voice, a platform to stand on that can get amplified, but then hear what they're saying, react to what they're saying, and embrace what they're saying.
Being uncomfortable is something that will be one of the very first things that happens in Workplace, and I've seen this especially with some senior leadership. It's very democratic, so all levels can post, the good and the bad. It will make us a better company because of that. Now we have to shine a light on everything, but Workplace really shines that light.
So from that video, I really love the words that they've shared, like trust, authenticity, leaders becoming the listeners of the organization. You also have fostering collaboration and being uncomfortable, knowing that for Workplace to work, it's really driven by the leadership team themselves. And it's never going to be happening, like cultural transformation will never happen overnight. So leaders will need to reinvent themselves constantly in making sure that Workplace will be implemented successfully in the organization. And then here's my favorite story as well, coming from the CEO of Starbucks, Kevin Johnson.
In January, we implemented Workplace by Facebook. Now, in January, we implemented Workplace by Facebook. Now think of Workplace by Facebook as a private Facebook for Starbucks partners to communicate and share information. Workplace allows us now to stream live open forums and have real-time dialogue with our store managers. We launched this in January with a live open forum hosted by Howard and myself with all store managers in the US. That's what you see up here on the screen. This was actual live open forum in January. And you can see by this live video, we are getting real-time comments, hearts, thumbs up, sometimes a thumbs down, mostly thumbs ups, and store managers asking us questions. Now this was a new experience for both Howard and myself. But we have now started doing these workplace live open forums with our store managers every month. And store managers have now found a way to create community and better connect with us. Some recent examples. About a month ago, a store manager posted on Workplace. They posted a post that said that they are selling more than 20 beverages a day that are not on our official beverage menu. They are beverages that were featured on Instagram. How many people use Instagram to get your beverage? See all kinds of beverages on Instagram. Well, they're selling 20 a day. They're not sure they have the right recipe. Well, within 24-hour period, nearly 40 other store managers also posted and said, I'm selling 15 of these a day. I'm selling 30 of these a day. And then that evening, our category marketing team saw the volume of posts and how much this beverage featured on Instagram was selling in our stores. And they made a decision that night and posted back to store managers by the next morning that they had made the decision to add this to the official beverage recipes, something that could have taken weeks, if not months, to happen before Workplace, happened in one day. That is creating visibility with our store managers that's enabling us to have more velocity in the way we make decisions so we can better serve our store managers and our partners in the stores.
So this is the kind of transformation that excites us to implement Workplace with different organizations. Can you imagine the things or the kind of decision making that would normally take weeks, if not months, has happened over a day using Workplace? And part of our learnings here is really about the kind of empowerment that leaders have transferred to their employees, and now they're able to make decisions on the go, and all of the 254,000 employees are connected on Workplace. Then we have another story here coming from AirAsia. And the number one reason why they wanted to implement Workplace is to fight bureaucracy. So in this case, they want to listen closely to the things that are important for their employees, and people from operations, people from the flight operations themselves are now collaborating on Workplace, and they've also implemented bots so that people would no longer need to complete so many forms. So for example, if I'm an employee for Asia and I need to book a flight, I no longer need to complete all of the forms that would normally take around 5 to 10 minutes to do so. So now all they need to do is type in their names, their location, and the bot that they've implemented will automatically book the flights for them. And more importantly, we're seeing that they're now building that sense of community. And one of the primary things that AirAsia is using on Workplace would be the auto-translate feature, which means that even if I'm from Japan, I can easily collaborate with people from Malaysia, along with the other employees that we have across the 22,000 employees in their organization. So you can only imagine the kind of barriers that it has removed for their organization. And then my last story here would be Globe Telecom. So in their case, they really wanted to increase engagement across the business. And one of the things that they did was to create social communities within the platform. So you have growth at Globe, wellness at Globe, and it's essentially a place where people could easily talk about things as well that they are passionate about. And then from the stories that they've shared with us, they would also conduct town halls using Workplace. So before the town hall, they'd normally ask or do a quick poll to get the pulse of the organization and see the pressing questions that they need to answer during the town hall itself. So you can only imagine that the transformation itself happens not just with all of the employees, but with the leaders themselves. And then lastly, if let's say you'd like to bring Workplace to your organization, this is the journey of transformation. So it's normally a platform that you will be using to make sure that all of your employees are connected and informed. It's really designed for communications. And then next would be it's also a place to get work done. So if there are any areas where you need to collaborate with different organizations, not just within your business, then you can easily create a multi-company group, get them on board, and you can easily start work much more seamlessly in comparison to, let's say, if you're using emails, Viber or Messenger, to name a few. And then lastly, you can also slowly introduce automations after the 6 to 12 months of using Workplace so you don't overwhelm employees. But there are so many use cases around automations. It could be as simple as your IT help desk, HR help desk about policies and practices. Some organizations are using automations as well to reward and recognize employees, follow up the completion of their learning and development programs. And our main message here is less is more. If we're able to put everything in one place in an ecosystem where everyone is already familiar with, then it's going to be easier for your business to communicate and make decisions on the go. So if you have 50 employees or 200,000 employees like Starbucks, then Workplace is a place for you to make sure that work gets done and people feel connected and engaged while we're all working apart. So I now welcome back Ange to join the conversation and to answer any of the questions from the panel, or sorry, from the participants today.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence. That was awesome. All right, so we'll go through our questions. Please feel free to share your questions with us. Let us know how that conversation and presentation went. All right, so we have a first question. So what happens when an employee resigns? Lawrence, do you want to take on this?
Sure, Ange. So when an employee resigns, all of the conversation with that employees will stay on Workplace, but the employee itself will no longer be able to access Workplace. So in our case, like many other organizations, this is something that they've integrated with their Active Directory so that you no longer need to manually do that on Workplace. If an employee resigns, it means that their access will no longer be available on Workplace as well. But all of the threads, all of the conversation related to that employees will still be in the platform, not unless you decide to delete it.
Right. So just wanted to add to Lawrence's point, and that's really a good one, because I think one of the issues of organizations today is continuity. When somebody resigns and a person replaces them, it's like they have to start from scratch, learn everything from scratch. But if they're coming onto Workplace and they see previous conversations that have happened, it's better for them to get that context and get that understanding really fast. So with Workplace, as Lawrence has mentioned, they will immediately have no access to the platform if you take them out from the employee list. But on the other side of the coin, if you add anyone to the employee list and your employee list is tied to your Workplace, then it means that immediately new people that you're adding to the company also get access to Workplace. So sometimes this is a challenge for those who are using Viber groups or Messenger groups, where there are people who should be part of relevant conversations, but they're not there because we forgot to add them, or we forgot to take out people who are still in the group, but they shouldn't be seeing any of the confidential information already. So I believe that's something you can eliminate completely when you bring everybody to Workplace. Yeah. And then there's another question here, Lo, how fast can we bring this to our organization?
I would say it really depends on the company size, but the typical implementation time for Workplace would be 2 to 4 weeks. For an organization size of, let's say, 100 to 10,000 employees, anything more than that would probably take around 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the objectives as well. But we're seeing that some organizations with, let's say, 8,000 or 9,000 employees are able to implement Workplace in as fast as 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah. So lightning fast, even for us, as we've shown you in our Talent View platform. And I know that you guys saw the video. If I were a type of food, what would I be and why? So let's just erase that from memory. but yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty easy to use and to pick up because everyone's familiar with the user interface of Facebook. So another question that I'll take is, someone said Facebook is currently banned in our company. How will Workplace happen for us? All right, so that's the beauty of it. right? So Facebook and Workplace are totally separate platforms, totally separate applications. So in other words, you can continue to ban Facebook or other social media sites if you don't want your team members to have access to that, but you can enable Workplace. And those are totally separate things that people can have access to. And then with the social media apps, you can keep the restrictions that you have. So that's definitely possible. All right, so we're not seeing any more questions. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to wrap up this session. But if you guys think of any other questions, I'm also going to leave our LinkedIn and social media handles at TalentView for us to continue the conversation. All right, so let's get on with some final notes. Please let us know right now how your webinar experience went. So for the past hour, is this something you learned from? Did you enjoy this conversation? And we also have the Employer Brand Strength Questionnaire or report coming out soon. Anyone who's providing feedback to us, we will give you a copy of that report in advance. So within this week, you'll be able to get the copy already. So please let us know how we did and how we can improve for our next webinar Wednesdays. So we'll give everyone a few minutes to answer the feedback survey that's coming up in your screens. All right, so thank you everyone for responding to that. So just a reminder again, this one is something I mentioned at the start, but for those who are watching us or just coming in at the middle of the webinar, all the resources that we shared today will be shared with you via email in the next 24 hours. So our webinar recording, a copy of the presentation slides, and any additional resources that might be of interest to you because of this workplace discussion. All right, and as we move on to the next slide, I'm inviting you to connect with Lawrence and myself. So you have our QR codes flashing. So you can just use your phone camera, point that to the QR code, and connect with us on LinkedIn. We can continue our conversation there. And if there are any questions that you feel you weren't able to ask, you can connect with us on LinkedIn or also connect with TalentView in our social media handles coming up right here. All right, so you can get in touch with us through our website, talentview.asia. Send us an email at learning@talentview.asia or inquiry@talentview.asia, or visit our LinkedIn page, TalentView Inc. All right, so with that, again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We do hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to see you in our upcoming webinar Wednesdays here at TalentView. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.